All right. Hello, I'm Mike Day, Dealer Service Representative here at AGWS, and welcome to our August AGWSU F&I Insights webinar. Today, Bob Harkins, our Vice President of Training, will be covering C&E, the Big Six, CMS, in place and updated, IRS, CRR, and MLS, and then the 7 Ps, how to prepare. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in the panel on the right, and we'll try to address them as they come in. For follow-up questions, you can also email those to bharkins@agws.com. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob to discuss maybe some previous webinars, and then take it away.
Thank you very much, Mike Day. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to F&I Insights. My name is Bob Harkins, and again, welcome to F&I Insights, where our goal is to provide you, as always, with an on-demand 24/7 F&I and compliance webinar series that's designed to help you have something really not as a replacement, but really as a complement to your existing training efforts and training needs. A few words about the webinar series. Again, this is webinar number 24, dating back to January of 19. Thank you so much for your response, for your participation, for your feedback. Comment on just a couple of webinars that we've had just a lot of comment on and a lot of feedback and doing some things with. One of which was just what we did last month with my good friend Ed Stewart. Number of contacts with respect to that, both to myself and Ed, as we got into conversational selling and being audible ready and tying that into our value-added F&I sales presentations and also value-added objection handling. So we'll be using Ed in some other segments down the road as it relates to the fixed operations as well, and audible ready on the service line and some things of that nature from his training block of instruction. Go back to, let's see, February of 2020. February of 2020. And February of 2020. And it's Successful Menu Selling 2.0, February 2020, Successful Menu Selling 2.0. What is something?
Bottom left, Bob.
Yeah, Successful Menu Selling 2.0. Successful menu selling begins with menu telling, menu introductions and presenting options, monologue, dialogue, and conversational selling. In webinars that we do around the country, in dealership sales training, whatever, a lot of discussion on Successful Menu Selling 2.0. One of our references that we do in class, both in person and in the field, and obviously on our webinar series, is Gil Vanover III's book, Automotive Compliance in a Digital World. Gil penned that, published that in March of 18. It's only 18 chapters, 160 some pages. It's not lengthy, but I will tell you that chapters 9, 10, and 11 are worth the cost or price of admission, as I like to say, to have that. Chapters 9, 10, and 11 are the e-chapters. Chapter 9 is e-desking. Chapter 10 is e-menu, and chapter 11 is e-contract. And Gil does a really nice job with that. Staying with that Successful Menu Selling, one of the areas that we talked about in webinars and in classes and phone contacts that I have, just to share with you that, and to reaffirm the fact from a thinking standpoint, that really, ladies and gentlemen, the single most important piece of paper or digital document in a deal file is a properly executed menu. Ask that to Gil Vanover, ask that to Dave Robertson, ask that to Terry O'Loughlin, Director of Compliance with Reynolds, ask that to our good friend Randy Henrik, which was with us in our March webinar earlier this year, and they will echo the same thing. The most important piece of paper or digital document in a deal file is a properly executed menu. Why, you ask? The two key words, of course, are properly executed, and if that's done, it will confirm for you that the dealership was transparent. Many things are clearly seen and easily understood from a consumer standpoint. Confirms the dealership was transparent during the sale of your F&I products and services. So Gil talks about in those chapters, and also, and obviously automotive compliance in a digital world, the 4 things that does for you if it's executed properly. That is the menu. Number 1, it affirms the agreement in sales. It affirms the agreement in sales from a base payment standpoint. as you then have the payment initialed by the customer. So there's no dispute, there's no doubt. The customer has the base vehicle payment. Number two, it discloses your products that you offer. Your unique financial package is the term that we use in many of our stores. Discloses that your unique financial package, your products offered and selected are optional. They're not a requirement, not a condition of financing. Number three, discloses that the base payment and final payment on the selected and declined page. So you have that on not the presentation page, but the selected decline page discloses the base payment and the final payment with their selection on that selected decline page. And finally, number four, discloses the prices. Discloses the prices of the selected products and the fact that the terms agree with the retail installment sale contract or consumer lease agreement. So that webinar, a lot of work with that. We've sent the slides to that to many people who have been on our webinar series. And again, all you have to do is go to hewsu.com/webinars, pull them up, view the past webinars. If you want the slides, give me a shout. Call Mike, either one, and we'll have marketing send those out to you as well. So that particular webinar always seems to come back, and it's not going to go away. Successful Menu Selling 2.0. And then right after that, in March of 20, and then also in May of 20, you notice in March of 20, the last bullet point listed there was the latest Military Lending Act developments. Remember that with the Defense Department and the Pentagon and selling Gap and other products with the military personnel. So our good friend Dave Robertson, Executive Director, President of AFIP, presented on that. And then also our May webinar, May 13th, 2020, the last bullet point for May was the 2020 Military Lending Act rule change. And we discovered the change of that with respect to that rule. And if you pull that up and play that, one of the things you'll see is that Dave Robertson will say things like, it's not over until it's over. And these things can rear their ugly heads again and change as it relates to the CFPB, the FTC, the administration that's in power, Biden, Harris, as the case may be. And this has just happened as of June, really. And I'm looking at my July 21 spot delivery newsletter from Hudson Cook. And one of the articles listed there under the CFPB watch is the fact that, here we go again, the CFPB, that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, issues interpretive rule on authority to conduct Military Lending Act related examinations. So as Dave talked about earlier, the pricing that you're asking for these products with military people, they're going to be reviewed, they're going to be challenged, whatever. So forgive me, but let me just read this paragraph to you with respect to what has just happened, quite frankly, last month or a month and a half ago. On June 16th, the CFPB issued an interpretive rule explaining the basis for its authority to conduct examinations of supervised institutions, that's the finance sources that buy our paper, to detect and assess risks to active duty service members and their dependents arising from conduct that violates the Military Lending Act. In 2018, during the last administration, that would be the Trump administration, the CFPB discontinued Military Lending Act related examination activities based on its belief that Congress did not specifically confer examination authority on it with respect to the Military Lending Act. However, and here's the change, new administration, new CFPB director, his name is Rohit Chopra, final sentence. The current CFPB leadership does not find those prior beliefs persuasive, and the CFPB will now resume Military Lending Act related examination activities. So have that discussion with the stores that need that with respect to service members and just how they're marketing the products and the pricing and the pricing as well, because again, that is not going to go away. Mike, next slide, if you would. Go back to our, here we go. C&E, the Big Six. C&E, the Big Six. In our March webinar of this year, that was our 90-minute special, I was joined by not only Dave Robertson from AFIP, but also attorney Randy Henrick from Randy Henrick and Associates. And Randy again wrote the update and revision with respect to the NADA driven publication with the update on the Truth in Lending Act and Regulation Z, and also information there with respect to e-signatures and the e-sign Act, which stands for electronic signatures in global and national commerce. Well, during that webinar, we asked Randy, the attorney that was on the meeting with us, to just confirm the big six. And this is the order that he came up with and we presented with respect to, as a dealer, from a compliance and ethics standpoint. Think about this as we're agent partners and dealer clients. The big six, the six most important things that we should consider as it relates to compliance and ethics. Number one, far and away, and this has been true from several sources now, this list of six, not just from Randy Henrick, although he was the most recent presenter, but also our good friend Terry O'Loughlin, Director of Compliance for Reynolds, will tell you the same thing. So number one are the finance sources that buy your paper. Number one, the finance sources that buy your paper. And folks, the primary reason for that is all the finance sources that buy your paper, they are directly under the umbrella of the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But I'll just read a short paragraph to you as well that ties this together. This is from Car Law, Hudson Cook's Car Law, the F&I Legal Desk Book. It's from the chapter on the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010. It gets into the CFPB as well. And here's on page 343, if you have Car Law, this is still the 8th edition, number 9 is not out yet. But on page 343, the last paragraph is what it says. And don't forget that the Bureau, that means the CFPB, has authority over others who deal with exempted dealers. Exempted dealers are the new car dealers that have both a service facility and they're not buy here, pay here. They sell their contracts to non-affiliated third parties. So the Bureau has authority over others who deal with exempted dealers, such as, here we go, such as the companies that buy retail installment contracts and leases from those dealers. The Bureau has shown that it will not hesitate to lean on those companies to pressure them into regulating dealer behavior. So if you want to go all the way back with that, with December of 13 and January 14 with Ally Bank and Ally Financial. Then after that, you had America Honda Finance. And after that, you had Fifth Third Bank. After that, it was TMCC. The largest, of course, was Ally, 98 million, all the way down to over 21, 22 million for the last two that I mentioned. But the charge was the same, and that they were buying paper and engaging in an ongoing nationwide pattern or practice of discrimination, and that they're charging African Americans, Asian Americans, and Hispanics higher APRs than white customers with similar credit profiles. So again, that's not going away. And the word that we hear on the street from various reliable sources is a number. And maybe you've gone through it as well, because we know of some that it's happened to. Some of our dealer partners, dealer clients are undergoing examinations as we speak, audits from their various finance sources. So that's exactly what this refers to. AG, Attorney General. Attorney General, of course, is the top legal officer in the state. Many people also say that AG also stands for aspiring governor, because when you think about it, what better way to get your name in front of the constituency, the voters, the constituency, than to do things that are very attractive or popular, perhaps, as it relates to the Attorney General, and then run for the governor of the state. In fact, just heard that the last couple of nights with respect to the New York Attorney General Letitia James and her aspirations of becoming the governor of New York. So we'll see how that plays out. Numbers 3 and 4, the FTC and the CFPB. The FTC, of course, stands for the Federal Trade Commission. We have a new chair of the Federal Trade Commission. Her name is Lina, L-I-N-A, Khan, K-H-A-N. Lina Khan was selected by President Biden and recently confirmed by the Senate. So she is chair of the FTC. Remember, we've talked about before, but I think it's important to note that from a directive standpoint and rulemaking authority, the FTC has five commissioners. They're all appointed by the president for a term of 7 years. All have to be confirmed by the Senate, and then the president elects a chair out of those five. And the chair that was elected, again, hot off the press, is Lena Khan, Khan. Now, another lady that we talked about in previous webinars, and Dave Robertson and Randy Henrik mentioned it in our March webinar, is a lady by the name of Rebecca Kelly Slaughter. Until Lena Khan's appointment as chair, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter was the active chair. And Rebecca Kelly Slaughter is well known because it was her team that was involved in the Bronx Honda case, where auto dealership Bronx Honda general manager to pay $1.5 million to settle FTC charges that they discriminated against African American and Hispanic buyers. The complaint also alleges deceptive advertising, bogus fees, price inflation, and other practices. But it's important to note with respect to that is, and this was also an automotive news in May insert as well relating to compliance and ethics. Rebecca Kelly Slaughter and Rohit Chopra, before Rohit Chopra became director of the CFPB, he was previously one of the commissioners of the FTC. So it's like related, jump around alphabet soup. But with respect to Bronx Honda and Rohit Chopra, several quotes from these two individuals. Number one, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, still with the FTC. 3 quotes with respect to product sales and reserve, dealer markup. Here we go, quote number 1. The automobile financing market in the United States is profoundly broken. FTC member saying that. Quote number 2, in my view, far-reaching structural reform to the automobile financing and sales markets, so not just financing, but also sales markets, our voluntary protection products, is long overdue and urgently needed. First and foremost, the Commission can start by initiating a rulemaking under the Dodd-Frank Act to regulate dealer markup. And then quote number 3 from Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, final quote, on that score, think of this last one, on that score, dealer markup, meaning finance reserve, dealer markup has got to go, and I would like to help. So those are real, they're quotes from the FTC, Commissioner Rebecca Kelly Slaughter. And then Rohit Chopra, who also commented on the Bronx Honda case along with Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, he said this with respect to markup. And this is the quote from Rohit Chopra, who's now the director of the CFPB. He says, markup is an undisclosed kickback. Markup is quote, an undisclosed kickback that dealers earn for convincing prospective car buyers to agree to a higher interest rate than they actually qualify for with a lender. So again, directly now from the CFPB director, as far as reserve or markup, it defines it as an undisclosed kickback that dealers earn for convincing prospective car buyers to agree to a higher interest rate than they actually qualify for with a lender, unquote. So again, both of those come directly from Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, still with the FTC as a member of that committee, and Rohit Chopra, the new director of the CFPB. Next one, DOJ, stands for the Department of Justice. Some of you were following this as we talked about it in class and saw it in various sources as well. And just quickly, it was the dealer in Erie, Pennsylvania, that was involved with falsifying credit applications, bank and wire fraud conspiracy, not paying floor plan property, and other things as well. That finally came down with respect to sentencing, and that took place in February of this year, where the dealer was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in federal prison, and also pay $1.7 million as far as fraud and other payment as well, a $5,000 fine. The F&I manager, the F&I director in that case also got 32 months in prison for his part in the things that were going on there. So that was directly from the Department of Justice. So again, how does that work, and what happens? Terry O'Loughlin and Andy Henrik. You have handouts from Gil Vanover that we use in our training classes, and you know how to pull those up. But Gil especially has a great piece. He talks about falsifying any one of the 5 key credit determinants. If you falsify any one of the 5 key credit determinants, the finance source has to report you to their regulating agency. In most cases, that's the Department of Justice. Then a lot of things happen as a result of that. And that's what happened to these stores in Erie, because under the DOJ's umbrella is the FBI. The FBI came in the store and also raided the dealer's home as well. So what are these 5 key credit determinants that the finance sources, when they find out that it's falsified information, they have to complete what's referred to as a SAR. Folks, that stands for Suspicious Activity Report. They have to send that to, in most cases, the Department of Justice. But the kicker is they cannot tell you that they've done that. They cannot tell you that they've submitted, that they forwarded the SAR, which lists you, your organization, as potentially committing bank fraud. So what are these 5 things? Number 1, of course, is if you falsify the customer's income. Number 2 is if you falsify the customer's housing expense, meaning we reduce the rental payment or the mortgage payment so that there's better margin as it relates to ability to pay. Number 3, we falsify the customer's time on job. Number 4, we falsify the customer's time at the address. And last but certainly not least, and I just hear and see this in my travels, and people look at each other and smile, and you know what's going on in stores or whatever. And that is when you falsify or add to or change the applicant's job type. And typically what's happening there is we add a word, the manager, to the title, or we add a word, the supervisor, when clearly the applicant is not a manager or supervisor. Those are things that will get you reported. And again, that's the SAR that goes directly to the Department of Justice. They cannot tell you that they've reported you, but potentially committing bank fraud. So again, real quickly, what are they? Customer's income, customer's housing expense, customer's time on the job, time and address, and last but not least, the job type. And then number 6, we always talk about. Terry O'Loughlin does a great job with this, but as well as Gil Vanover, and it's the predatory litigators. And depending upon your market area, your location, the plaintiff's attorneys that are in your area, the dark side, if you will, is the term that Gil Vanover uses a lot. But the right or wrong predatory litigator in your particular market area, instead of being number 6 on this list, they might move up to number 1. They might move up to number 1. So again, they're worthy of this list, and depending upon area and just how aggressive they are, the dark side of predatory litigator could be number 1 as far as who we should consider or concern ourselves with. So the big 6, who we should fear or respect the most. Who we should fear or respect the most as it relates to compliance and ethics. Finance sources, Attorney General, Federal Trade Commission, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, DOJ, Department of Justice, and last but not least, the predatory litigators. Michael, next slide, sir, if you would. We've seen this before, and I wanted to throw this back up as a model, and that is creating a client compliance process, a 10-step checklist. We'll talk about what Hudson Cook has to say about this and recommendation for how to prepare yourself for a dealer audit with respect to preparation with your CMS. So again, let's kind of talk about what a CMS is. CMS stands for Compliance Management System. It's a formal written program. Got to be in writing. It's a formal written program that's built into every stage or phase of your operation, meaning from advertising to sales to F&I and to back-end processes. Why is this important, among other things? Well, we know for sure that one thing that regulators look at and ask is to find out and see if the dealership really has a structure. Is there a structure around compliance, number 1, And question number two, is it truly integrated into your dealership operations? So again, if a regulator visited you, what would they see? Your CMS, does it exist? Is it updated? Is it reviewed? Whatever, as it relates to advertising, your sales process, not just F&I, but also front end as well, finance and leasing, steps to the sale, and then your back end process as well. So is this program integrated into your store and into your operations? And is there really a structure around compliance? So the recommendation from attorney Terry O'Loughlin from Reynolds is the fact that our CMS should include taking 4 interconnected steps. Number 1 is executive oversight, which I hope should be obvious. That means dealer commitment and management support. Obviously, if management cares about C&E, trust me, if they truly care, everybody else in the store will do that as well. So, but that requires an appointment of a compliance officer to make that happen properly. 4 integrated steps. Step number 2 is the writing of your written compliance programs, not just for safeguards and red flags, which are required by the Federal Trade Commission, but also your written policies and procedures for your sales force, your sales procedures, your F&I, your back-end processes as well. So written compliance programs. Number 3 is to develop a complaint resolution program, a complaint resolution program that's designed to do several things. Number 1, to log, track, and investigate, and then resolve, hopefully, your complaints. And that's something that we should not put on the back burner. A complaint resolution program designed to log, track, investigate, and resolve customer complaints. And number 4, last but not least, I've had this discussion with probably the last 5 stores that I've been in the last 6 or 7 weeks in working with the CMS compliance management system. And that has to do with dealership audits. And that is on some frequency, whether it's every year, year and a half, 2 years, whatever, but have an outside independent audit of your deal jackets, some conducted by someone that's independent of your organization. Number 1, what you're striving for there is objectivity, which you probably don't have if somebody in F&I is doing that, or another member of the management team. I mean, it's okay if they conduct audits, but every year or so, get the opinion from your attorney or house counsel who you should talk with, and objectivity, have someone else come in and do it, then also eliminating the problem of conflicting self-interest. So again, a CMS, a formal written program built into every phase of your activity, from advertising to sales to F&I to your back-end processes. Remember, again, from a disclaimer standpoint, when we get into these things, that I'm not an attorney. I certainly don't pretend to be. So again, ladies and gentlemen, nothing that I say, give, or show you at any time is in any way considered as legal advice. Should not be considered as legal advice. It's something to help you look at, evaluate, and if necessary, perhaps improve the overall effectiveness of your business policies, your business practices. Obviously, your dealers should be aware of this, but again, they should consult their house counsel, their attorneys, their legal counsel regarding the legality of any policy or procedures that they would ultimately change or adopt. Next slide, Mike. Okay, this says preface up in the right-hand corner. This is information from the NADA, the National Automobile Dealers Association's block of instruction as it relates to the money laundering statutes and the IRS cash reporting rule, which has been a hot button topic again this year in a number of webinars that I've done, both from a standpoint of just Zoom meetings, but also in person as well. So kind of hard to read, but I'm going to go down and just read a portion of these paragraphs to you as well. I go down to the second paragraph, down to the second paragraph, and let's read that. Other crimes, including prostitution and illegal gambling, continue to hold their own. Regardless of the offense, it all adds up to the same thing. Criminals everywhere are looking for ways to hide or launder their illegal profits without attracting attention. A common approach is to exchange the money generated through the illegal activities for legitimate big ticket items like cars. For this reason, the IRS and the Justice Department are particularly interested in automotive dealerships and their compliance with 2 very effective crime fighting laws. So we always talk about them together, but they're really 2 separate laws. Number 1, would be the money laundering statutes, and then the IRS cash reporting rule. Next paragraph, a short one. In recent years, the government has targeted dealerships across the country for undercover sting operations in order to expose money laundering activities. In these stings, agents have posed as drug dealers and have succeeded in purchasing large numbers of vehicles with cash that the salespeople believe to be the proceeds of illegal drug sales. I drop down 2 paragraphs to wrap this this handout up, the preface from NADA. Basically, the money laundering statutes. Basically, the money laundering statutes make it a crime for anyone to knowingly take money. That's the key word, is knowingly. If you know, you know. There's no turning back. If you don't, you don't. I mean, you're not a police officer. You're not DEA. You're not ATF. You're not FBI. You're not part of Treasury, FinCEN, whatever. You're a professional sales consultant. But you need to be a good listener. You need to be a good listener. For anyone to knowingly take money derived from illegal activities. The cash reporting rule requires anyone receiving more than 10, and that's the key phrase, more than $10,000 in cash in the sale of a consumer durable, such as a car, to report it to the IRS. So we'll see the key words in those phrases, and that phrase are the words more and cash. $10,000 even by itself is not more. We would not have to report that transaction to the IRS unless for some reason we think that it is a suspicious transaction. And as you know, suspicious transactions, perhaps, as you may know, they can be reported regardless of the amount. And that's something that you cannot inform the customer about, that you've reported them because you think that it is a suspicious transaction. So more than $10,000 in cash, that would be $10,000 and a penny. And in just a few minutes, we're going to define cash and talk about what that is. So from an outline standpoint, think about this. If it's 2 federal laws, let's just list maybe 3 things under the money laundering statutes for your consideration. Money laundering statutes, A, money laundering is a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. So money laundering is a felony. It's a criminal offense. Number 2, or B, under money laundering, the jail term for money laundering is up to 20 years in the federal penitentiary, and the fines are heavy as it relates to money laundering. They are up to $500,000. That would be $500,000. And the kicker, folks, with that is that $500,000 can be levied against both the individuals involved in the transaction, as well as the dealership corporation. So again, ABC with respect to money laundering, it's a felony criminal offense, jail time up to 20 years, fines are heavy, up to $500,000, potentially for the individuals involved, as well as the dealership corporation. Next part of our outline, Roman numeral 2, the IRS cash reporting rule, 5 keys or bullet points with respect to that to consider. A, the IRS cash reporting rule affects the life of your dealership. A, when you take in more than $10,000 in cash. So again, that's the key phrase, more than $10,000 in cash. If we take in more than 10, that takes us to B. We have to complete IRS Form 8300 / FinCEN Form 8300. That form, I just checked it again today, has not changed since August 29th of 2014. And it says clearly on the form that you should always use use the current form, the current Form 8300. So 8/29 of 14, as of about 2 hours ago, that was still the date that we would use, the form that we would use. But it clearly states at the top, do not use prior versions after this date. So you always want to make sure that we're using the proper IRS form, Form 8300. That has to be completed, ladies and gentlemen, within 15 days. Within 15 days of the receipt of the cash, that takes you over $10,000. Federal law requires that you keep a copy of that in your store for 5 years from the date that you file it. So again, more than $10,000 in cash triggers the completion of IRS Form 8300 / FinCEN Form 8300. And I say IRS Form 8300 / FinCEN. The top left-hand corner of the form says IRS Form 8300. The top right-hand corner, this is a post 9/11 term for us as it relates to 8300, is this FinCEN Form 8300. Now, FinCEN has been around for decades. It's not new, it's been around for decades. And FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, is part of the Treasury Department. So again, we complete that within 15 days. keep a copy for 5 years. D and E are some negatives. D is what's referred to as intentional disregard of the cash reporting law. A civil penalty for this, but they're heavy and they go up every year. Intentional disregard of the cash reporting law, meaning I don't report it to the IRS. For this year, 2021, the minimum fine for intentional disregard, this is per violation, is $28,260. The minimum fine is $28,260, or, a little confusing, or the dollar amount that you were required to report that failed to do so, up to a maximum for this year, 2021, of $113,000. So again, if you have a deal that's, let's say, $42,000, you're hit with intentional disregard, your fine would not be $28,260 or $113,000. Your fine would be the $42,000. So once again, for 2021, a minimum of $28,260, a max of $113,000. In the middle, the dollar amount that you were required to report but failed to do so. That's a civil penalty. E is right between the I's, much more negative. It's called structuring deals. Don't confuse structuring in this category or as it relates to like structuring deals for credit purposes. It has nothing to do with your debt to income ratio or loan to this value, this, that, and other thing, whatever, as far as the customer's ability to pay. But structuring is a felony with the IRS. Structuring is a felony, it's a criminal offense. And structuring, best way to describe that, or a way to describe it, is when you talk to a customer, and advise them of a way or ways to pay for the vehicle to avoid the cash reporting requirements. And quite frankly, as I say in many of the stores that I visit on a regular basis, it happens in our dealerships all too regularly because we don't know what the law is, and we think that we're helping out maybe a good friend to take that cash back to the bank, redeposit it, bring me back a personal check, and personal checks are exempt, so I don't have to report you. All too often, those kind of things can be happening. So you structure a deal when you advise a customer of a way to pay for the vehicle to avoid the cash reporting requirements. Again, as I mentioned, structuring is a felony. The jail time is up to 2 years. I'm sorry, strike that. The jail time is up to 5 years. Jail time is up to 5 years in the federal penitentiary. And the fine for this year has gone up. The fine for this year has gone up as it relates to structuring. It is now for 2021 an amount of $1,130,500. So structuring is heavy, right between the eyes. Criminal offense, jail time up to 5 years, and a penalty of up to $1,130,500. Don't let these things happen to you. Michael, next slide, if you would. Okay, a little handout that we use in class. Let's just quickly kind of go through this. Form 8300. What is cash? What is cash? Just take it from the top. Cash is always US or foreign currency, but it's also cashier's checks, traveler's checks, money orders, bank drafts, etc., meaning all monetary instruments with a face value of an even $10,000 or less. So the bottom line is when the traveler's check, money order, bank draft, or cashier's check is for an even $10,000 or less, and then when they're added together with each other and or with my cash, they now total more than $10,000, I have to report that transaction to the IRS within 15 days of receiving that cash. It takes me over $10,000. So in the middle of the page where it says required to file, stay on the left-hand side first. Cash over $10,000 always. That includes cashier's checks, money orders, traveler's checks, other monetary instruments. When each one is $10,000 or less, with the total you receive, meaning added together, of all items in this column, any combination is over $10,000. We have to report it within 15 days. Go down to where it says examples and stay with the left-hand side. 3 examples where an 8300 would be needed. Deal number 1 involves 2 cashier's checks, one for $5,000, another for $8,000. Why is that? Yes. 5 and 8 are both 10 or less. Added together with each other, it totals more than 10. So within 15 days, we have to report this transaction to the IRS, advising them that we've received $13,000 in cash. The second deal, cashier's check for $8,000, pure cash or currency for $12,000. Why is that? Yes. The cashier's check again is for an even 10 or less, added together with cash, and now totals more than 10. have to report that transaction to the IRS within 15 days that we've received $12,000 in cash. And I'm glad that they did the example in the bottom left-hand corner to prove a point. We have a cashier's check of an even $10,000. Customer gives you the penny. Total received $10,000 and 1 penny would be a transaction that we would have to report to the Internal Revenue Service within 15 days. Go back up to the middle of the page again, where it says Form 8300 filing requirements. And look over to the right where it says not required to file, not required to file. We want to add 2 things to this list. So not required to file, personal checks are always never. Business checks are always never. Credit cards are always never. And loan drafts are never. Just remember that we have to be able to prove and document that the money did come from a loan, and a copy of the check or information on the lien papers, whatever, will do that for you. But those 4 are always never. Personal checks, business checks, credit cards, loan drafts, and then cashier's checks over $10,000 each. So $10,000 and a penny and more. Cashier's checks we do not have to report, because the finance source, the bank, whatever, that issued that cashier's check, they're responsible for doing that directly to the IRS with a currency transaction report. So that's their responsibility, not ours. Now, 2 things to add to our not required to file column. Number 1 would be debit cards, and number 2 would be wire transfers. So please add, if you would, if you're taking notes on this, debit cards and wire transfers as it relates to not required to file. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, had some difficulty putting this together to just kind of make it look like 3 different deals. Well, let me explain it to you this way. Here's 3 different transactions, 3 different transactions where an 8300 would not be needed. Transaction number 1 is just the top line where the customer gives you a cashier's check for $10,500. Again, it's not cash. The bank would report that transaction to the IRS. Next line is a deal where customer gives us a personal check or checks in any amount. Again, personal checks, as we learned just a minute in the middle column above, personal checks are always never. And then the last 4 items kind of run together. Cashier's check, traveler's check, cash, and another cashier's check. Please consider those as one transaction. So consider those 4 things as one transaction. So we have a $3,000 cashier's check. We have a $25,000 traveler's check. We have pure cash for $3,100. We now have a cashier's check for $15,000, and the total is $23,600. Note what it says at the bottom. By definition, as we've already discussed, only $8,600 is cash by definition, and therefore would not be required to report that transaction to the Internal Revenue Service. So IRS Form 8300, and again, as you ask for and get the slides with respect to this, you would have this information as well for your in-house training or training that you do, or want to get me involved with you for either Zoom meetings or in the store, or whatever. Certainly be happy to look at schedule and provide that for you for you as well. Mike, next slide, if you would. This brings us to something that we look at almost each and every webinar, and it's not going to go away. And that's the recommendation for you to, as an agent partner, a dealer client, whatever your situation is to develop a mission statement and then a value statement for your organization. A mission statement or value statement for your organization. The mission statement that I use, that we use, I've said it before, I think it's great, and it's certainly nothing that I thought of, but this actually came from a large dealer group in the Northwest a number of years ago. And I think it's an excellent mission statement for a dealership to consider. And it very simply is this, and that is every customer knows what they're getting, they agree to buy it, they know why they need it, and they feel good about it when they leave our dealership. I mean, think about that for a minute. Are we really committed to transparency? And as we talk about in training classes, committed to doing business the right way? Remember that acronym, RHITT. R stands for respect. H stands for honesty. I stands for integrity. The first T stands for transparency. The final T stands for trust. So mission statement. Every customer knows what they're getting. They agree to buy it. They know why they need it, and they feel good about it when they leave the dealership. And finally, American Guardian Warranty Services University, a training value statement. This is also reflective of the American Guardian group of companies' seller code of conduct for retail sales. So how does this read? We endorse and teach. We endorse and teach the industry standard and best practices that are recommended by NADA, by AFIP, the Association of Finance and Insurance Professionals, and number three, our companies, the American Guardian group of companies, seller code of conduct for retail sales, which serves as a guide to the proper sales practices for all retail sellers of AGWS products. So again, NADA, the National Automobile Dealers Association, best practices with them, compliance with their Fair Credit Compliance policy and program, compliance with their model leadership policy for presenting voluntary protection products, all programs that were developed in 2014 and 2019, respectively. Also, as part of NADA and backing this information is NAMAD, NAMAD, the National Association of Minority Auto Dealerships, and also AIADA, which is the American International Automobile Dealership Association as well. So that would be the import dealers. From an AFIP standpoint, it's not falling into the trap of getting wrapped up with and being involved with any one of AFIP's 7 deadly sins of F&I. Remember those, the 7 most common errors that cause dealers to become the targets of bad things. If Dave were with us, he would tell us, as always, that it doesn't take all 7 of these things to take it down. It takes just one that becomes a pattern or practice in your dealership. Negatively, you're guaranteeing yourself a class action lawsuit, but then also committing to the AFIP code of ethics and the canons that they provide with respect to that involving AFIP certification. So once again, our training value statement, we endorse and teach the industry standard and best practices that are recommended by NADA, by AFIP, and our American Guardian group of companies seller code of conduct for retail sales, an 11 bullet point sheet or form, which serves as a guide to the proper sales practices for all retail sellers of AGWS products. Again, our commitment as always is to help you to maximize deal profit, meaning both front-end gross and finance and insurance income. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, to do it the right way, and that is in a manner that's consistent with good customer relations and sound business practices. So again, have a great wrap up of August, get through the end of the month, and we hit those sales goals to get us back as it gets at least reaching that 16 million units. So we'll just see what happens with respect to that. With that, let me yield back to Mike Day to talk about our schedule, also what's on LinkedIn and other information about our webinar program. Michael?
All right, thank you, Bob. As he mentioned, if you look at the slide, you'll see our upcoming webinars coming up, and then also make sure to follow us and like us on LinkedIn. It has all of our webinars and everything on there, so make sure you don't miss those. And thanks everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you all.
Bob.
Have a great day.